Yo, you're listening to the Juju Writes Podcast. Keep it locked. Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Once again, I want to thank you guys and welcome you to the Juju Writes Podcast. This is your boy, your host, the man of the hour, Justin Juju Jackson. And listen, on the Juju Writes Podcast, I talk all things movie, TV, Marvel, DC, a sprinkle of anime, and anything else I want to talk about. See, this platform has been something that's been in the works for me for a very long time, and has been something that I've been wanting to do for a long time as well. So to be able to, set up this platform and talk about the things that I love, especially the number one things that I love, next to my girlfriend and my mother and Jesus, is film, is movie, TV, and of course I'm a big superhero fan. I have on my X-Men 97 t-shirt on right now. You don't see it in the traditional podcasting format, but you will be able to see it on the Juju Writes Podcast YouTube channel. So this is episode number 1 of the podcast, and it's titled Tennis, War, and Mutants. So we will be discussing on this week's podcast, we'll be discussing Zendaya's challengers, okay? The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and X-Men 97. I have loved these past 3 projects this past week, and I think it's, just something that we're going to have a great time discussing here on the podcast. So just as a little bit of an intro and an introduction to myself, like I said, my name is Justin Juju Jackson. I am from the great state of Virginia, specifically Richmond, Virginia, to be exact. Any of my Virginia peeps listening to this right now. Right now I'm in the world of finance and I love it, but I also have a deep love of film, of screenwriting, and just writing and telling my stories in general. So of course I'm going to talk about some writing as well, given the name Juju Writes. I'll have a segment of the show called Writer's Corner, where I get to talk about just my journey as a screenwriter and an author so far, and any tips and tricks for any aspiring screenwriters or authors out there. So yeah, let's kick it off and get into Zendaya's challengers. Listen, when I went to the movie theaters last weekend, opening weekend, to witness challengers, it was everything that I expected it to be, and I expected it to be Zendaya's show, and that's exactly what it was. Zendaya was by far a highlight for me in this film. Her performance and her ability to be a leading lady should never be questioned again, especially a cinematic leading lady. We know she can carry, a TV show, especially with one like Euphoria. Euphoria started out Zendaya show. Now it's more of a ensemble deal, but nonetheless, it's Zendaya's show, and this movie is no different. And I'm just convinced that 2024 is the year of Zendaya, right? She came off of, the amazing movie that is Dune Part 2. Love Dune, love Timothée Chalamet, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh. Shout out to all those guys. But Zendaya's Chani held down a lot of that film and definitely made Paul more relevant, in my opinion. That character, Chani, is just, she's his anchor, and Zendaya played her incredibly well. But back to challengers, Zendaya plays a character named Tashi Duncan. Tashi Duncan is very interesting in the sense that she takes no BS. She takes no stuff from nobody, and she makes her opinions very well known. She is a woman who strategically uses people in her life to get what she wants, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that at all. I actually root for it in a sense, and just my overall thoughts on the project is that it's definitely a 4.5 out of 5 for me. And the aspect of the using that Tashi does is great. I went around on my personal Instagram page and was telling people, man, they should just change the name from challengers to users, because every character uses the characters around them to get what they want, right? Tashi used the boys in the beginning of the movie more so just for like playthings, and she was just chilling. But then when she needed it to, she used art for emotional support during the time of her injury. She also used art to propel her personal tennis career after her injury, because she was just coaching some folks, but she has the level of relevance she has later down the line because she's able to successfully use art. Now, art is I don't want you guys to think that Tashi was just doing this just because, and that poor art. No, nobody is saying poor art, because art, it willingly lets Tashi use him. And all of the characters in this movie use each other. And that's what it should have been called. It should have been called users for that specifically. So I also like to go through the ups and the downs. The ups and the Zendaya, and the amazing score. The music was so well timed in this as well. It was just, you could definitely tell when the intensity of a moment was picking up, because the intensity of the music was picking up. And it was like this great, it almost sounded like kind of almost 80s themed, but it was good. It wasn't cheesy. It worked for the theme of the film and for the emotions of the different moments, and it definitely worked. Downsides, this film didn't really have any downsides for me. I definitely think that it's definitely one of the better projects of 2024. It definitely will get the critical acclaim. The score will definitely be nominated. I think the screenplay will be nominated as well. I think the dialogue was definitely some of the most intriguing dialogue that I've heard this year that's not adapted from anything, I don't think. I think Challenger's original. I'm going to have to Google that. But it was on point. Also, just some general complaints that I heard. The pacing. A lot of people didn't like the back and the forth and the different cutting from the different scenes, and it lost some people there. But for me, it made it even more engaging, just for the simple fact that you had to pay attention. The theme and what the film was centered around is not the most exciting thing. Tennis is exciting. It's exciting to an extent, but to make it more general in a sense, and to have drama and different elements involved, you have to play with the pacing to keep the audience involved and engaged. So listen, they did their thing with this one. But yeah, challengers, more like users. Also, another interesting point that I found very intriguing was the whole theme of like sexuality, because everyone was trying to say, is Art and oh boy, are they? No, but they like Tashi, but they've had some sus experiences. Like, I was watching the movie going, pause, yo, pause. But it seemed more like a endearing friendship and close brotherhood that the two shared, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the way they both competed for Tashi was like, bro, like, both of y'all like her. There's like all these women out here and you're fighting over Tashi. Now Tashi is Zendaya is Tashi, so I'm not mad at it. At the end of the day, we all will be fighting. We gotta fight Tom Holland and Spider-Man. I don't want no heats with Tom, but they was both fighting for, dude was a U.S. Open champion, the other dude was a bum, and like, oh buddy, he wanted Tashi to coach him. He was like, Tashi, And this is a spoiler. These are all spoilers, guys. I should have put a spoiler alert. But, hey. He was like, Tashi, like, I want you to coach me. I got one more year left in me, Tashi. And Tashi was like, man, if you don't suck that shit up, get out my face with that BS. You're a loser. You're a loser. She says all of this. And then she ends up smashing him. He ends up smashing her in a car. Tashi and Art are rolling around in hotels, rolling in the bank. They have a big flyer for, I think, some expensive jewelry company. And she's getting banged out. An old boy's crusted Honda Pilot. The white Honda Pilot at that. So, I mean, that just goes to show you everything right there. That just goes to show you. And she just smashed him out while being married to Art. While Art is watching Tashi's and his daughter. Tashi's going around lollygagging. Sowing her wild oats as if she's 17 again. No, absolutely not. It couldn't be me. And then at the very end of the movie, the Art finds out that Tashi smashed out old boy. He's just like, man. He says literally in the middle of the tennis match, he's like, I think he says like, go to hell or something. But he was just like, man. And then the two like duke it out over one point, and they hug. Like, he gets the point, and they fall into an embrace. I'm like, wow, this is so cheesy, but also on par for what this movie has been giving us so far. So, hey, I'm all for love. I'm all for brotherly love, and that was their MO. I'm not mad at it. That's what they got going on. But anyway, that's Challengers, aka Users. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I think you'll love it too. If you don't mind watching the spoilers I just gave you. Next time I'll give a spoiler alert. But this time, hey. The next movie that I'll be talking about is the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of Guy Ritchie. I find his work extremely engaging and extremely entertaining. You throw in Guy Ritchie directing, Alan Richardson, who plays Reacher on Jack Reacher, and Henry Cavill. An action film, a war action film that is a bit comedic. That's a 10 across the board. That's 10s across the board. For me personally, I love that type of stuff, and I eat up anything having to do with World War II. Well, actually, I take that back. I don't eat up anything having to do with World War II. I eat up most things, especially if it's in that format. So, Henry Cavill has delivered once again in a compelling action role. I thought he hit his peak as Superman, but I was wrong. He did not hit his peak as Superman. Man, it's still working. He's still going hard. Alan Richardson, he surprised me. I haven't really watched much of Reacher. I'm going to be very, very, very honest with you guys on this podcast, but I haven't watched much Reacher. I'm going to get into it. I really am. After seeing him in this movie, it's a 10s across the board. Now, with Challengers is about tennis. Self-explanatory. Ungentlemanly, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. War, right? But not just any war. Like I mentioned earlier, World War II. Now, this movie focuses around I believe it was the very first special ops mission that was completed by the Brits during that time. And during that time in World War II, the Brits were just getting bombed out. They were getting bombed out by the Nazis. Pause. But they were getting bombed out from the Nazis. They could not get supplies into England, and they also couldn't. America couldn't join the effort to help, our allies. So Winston Churchill came up with the amazing idea to just say, hey, we need to get down and we need to stop this. What is stopping us? Oh, Germany's awesome submarine power. The subs were tanking stuff. we couldn't enter the war because they couldn't get supplies over, and we couldn't sail over at that time. People weren't really flying military personnel anywhere for real. That inspired the mission that then inspired this movie. Like I said, Henry Cavill and Alan Richardson gave 10 out of 10 performances. I will watch that over and over again. This movie is very, very, very violent. Very violent. When you think of war is violent. Also, especially World War II was very, very violent. So, hey, I would liken the action style to Kingsman. I love the Kingsman series, and I love the action in the Kingsman series. I think it's unparalleled and like second to none in terms of engaging action. Well, actually, John Wick. I'll put John Wick and then Kingsman, with the comedic element. It reminded me a lot of Kingsman in a bit. And I love that movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect, but I like it. I like it a lot. I'd watch it again. I find it highly rewatchable. It wasn't really slow. It really stuck to its guns and got to where we wanted to go within a good amount of time. So I felt pacing was good there too. Dialogue was good. The Nazis are Nazis, so we can't really comment on their performance because they're bad in any form in media. So hey, that's them. But I definitely recommend the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare to anybody. I feel like this movie might land more with men just for the simple fact that it's a lot of boom, boom, pow, pow. But women like boom, boom, pow, pow too. So, hey, you never know. Alan Richardson is just tearing out Nazis' hearts. I feel like that is a huge selling point for anybody who is an American. Honestly, I feel like Germans would get down with that too, especially the way they're educated on on World War II and their own transgressions against the entire world. So, hey, that's the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I feel like most of this podcast we ended up talking about X-Men 97. Listen, I know they fired Bo DeMayo, and I feel like they may have a very good reason to have fired that man. Like a very good reason. But he's done great work. Great work. And people are like, oh, he's not the only creator, right? But most times showrunners, writers get a big chunk of the credit. A lot in the way that Shonda Rhimes is given a lot of credit for her shows like Bridgerton, Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder. Bo DeMayo has created this masterpiece. Now, I don't know what he's done. I'm not here to comment on it. Really not. But the work that he's done in X-Men 97 is amazing. I don't know if you're caught up on X-Men 97. If you haven't, you might want to skip through this part. I'm not going to get too spoilery. I'm not. But it just keeps getting better. And the X-Men have kind of fallen behind in terms of their status in the superhero world, just given the fact that the Avengers and anything DC has had going on has kind of just run the public subconscious for a very long time. I just really cannot remember a time when people were this excited about the Logan. I don't think Logan was really a source of excitement. I think people were just very surprised that it was an amazing movie. I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of the same things when it comes to the X-Men franchise up to now. But Logan was good. But in terms of X-Men adaptations, people are saying this is the best that it's ever been. I think Storm is a great character. She's iconic. My favorite character right now is Rogue. I'm digging Rogue. I dig how she just does not care. And just for the simple fact that they and this is a spoiler, but they killed her man. They killed her mans, right? And she's holding on to Dr. Trask off the side of the building. She's like, look, you're of no use to me. And this man's like, I don't know nothing else. And she's like, well, me neither, sugar. And just drops him. Just drops him. And everybody was shocked. Shocked. They were like, Rogue, what are you doing? Rogue was like, are y'all serious? He killed my mans. He killed a good man. My mans. And then, of course, Trask turned into a humanoid sentinel and rocked her right in the jaw and knocked her out for several days and several nights. But that's beyond the point. I think sidelining Wolverine in a sense, I think has done incredible PR for the rest of the X-Men. Let the old adaptations tell it, and Wolverine is the most interesting character. But lo and behold, he's not, and it wasn't really necessary to give Logan and Wolverine a big role, because we know a lot about Wolverine. We know a lot about Logan, because the past 20 some odd years has been focused on Logan. I just wish the Black X-Men had a bigger role. They marketed Bishop so much. He was in 2 episodes, one or 2 episodes. Like, what? Storm is gone half the time, but she's here now. She's back now. That's amazing. But I mean, I was like, dang. I thought I was going to be getting more Bishop. Thought I was going to get more Storm being fed crumbs. But for the sake of the story, for the direction of the story, I get it. Telling the story of Jean and Scott and Cable, all good things. But you know what? I would have liked a little bit more. What did she say? She said, "Ancient sons, heed my commands and take these relics of hatred." It was reclaim the relics of hatred. And she only spits bars. Been spitting bars. When she did that little transformation and did the little pose, like she was like, ching. Man, that was the best Marvel's got. Now I want to put Black Panther in an animated format, give it that much justice and that much love. And I'm telling you, it's making bank. Give it that much. Give Black Panther an animated series with that much love and that much care. People will watch it for years upon years upon years, because the animated format is one that will never get old and is the most endearing. I think personally, people are still, and animated shows run for a very long time. If you want them to run that long, look at Simpsons, Family Guy. These shows run a very long time, but it doesn't have to. It could be 3 seasons like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then have impact on generations, as long as you have quality storytelling. I mean, Marvel, it has such a big playground in terms of places they can go in the animated medium. And DC, for a very long time, has done the animated medium very well. I love when the New 52 came out and DC started making movies, like a movie universe just for the New 52. Instant fan. I loved every single one. Every single one was a banger, especially Justice League Dark. I found that one to be the most intriguing. But I was a little worried about Marvel's animated world when I saw What If. I just could not vibe with the animation style. I thought it was just, I'm a big fan of 2D animation. 3D animation it's all right, but have 3D aspects, but give me majority 2D. But I love the direction. Magneto was right. People. He sure was. He was right all day and all night. And when he got out of those shackles and sent those electrical pulses and shut down those magnetic pulses and shut down them sentinels, and then Charles Xavier popped up out of nowhere. It was like, to me, my X-Men, and they was all like, oh my gosh, Professor, he's alive. Oh. I just knew that it was over for the humans. It's over, and I hope that wasn't their best bet. I really hope that was their best bet. But we will see where this series goes. I'm super excited. Bo DeMayo, the showrunner and writer, well, former showrunner and writer, who knows? But he also finished the second season, so there'll be I think there'll be some synchronicity in terms of the vision there with the animated show and the consistency of the writing. Bo did something. He did something very bad, but he's a real lover of the comics and material for which he's creating. And he's worked with Marvel several times. It's not his first rodeo working with them. They wouldn't have given him their baby. X-Men is their baby. They wouldn't have given him their big baby without believing in his vision and talent. And he couldn't have been hard to work with because he was working on that other stuff. But I guess maybe if you're driving the boat, he was a lot different driving the boat than he was doing that other stuff. But hey. Well, my last point on X-Men. We know that Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out. I hope we see other X-Men in that movie. I know we'll see some flashbacks to that Wolverine's world, and it'll be great. I wonder if it's going to tie in X-Men 97 at all. That would be just genius if they did that. But I'm not really expecting it. And Kevin Feige believes that Deadpool and Wolverine is a 10. So I'm going to say it's a 9.5 just to give it a benefit of the doubt. He's produced things that have been okay, not 10s. Okay, I'm not a Marvel hater. I'm not a superhero fatiguer. I've seen every single Marvel project front to back and several times on occasion, and I think they're great. Not every Marvel project has to be a 10. That's just unrealistic. It's not going to happen, y'all. But we need some 9s, some 8s, some 7s, some 6s, some 5s, maybe 1 4. Thor: Dark World. But Thor: Love and Thunder is not as bad as people think it is. I thought it was very funny, very on point, and kind of poignant, having the little girl come in and just be badass. I thought it was dope, and there's a place for her in the universe. So that's X-Men, y'all. That's X-Men 97. So we are at the Writer's Corner. We are at the Writer's Corner section of this show. And I guess I just wanted, since this is episode number 1 and a bit of my introduction, I guess I can just talk to you guys how I decided that I love to write and wanted to be a screenwriter and tell stories. So I guess, when did I start writing? I started writing about 2 years ago. And it wasn't a thing as to where I always loved movies. I always loved film. And I've always wanted to work in a capacity in the industry. But I did not know what that was. And I did not know if I was going to be any good at writing, directing, any of that. Acting just seemed too far-fetched because it was out in the stratosphere to me. You have to put yourself out there and showcase your vulnerability and on screen so everyone can see it. If it's in the writing, it's a bit more dressed up and convoluted, but it's very vulnerable. So, and it wasn't a thing where I was like, oh, I want to be a writer. I literally woke up one day. Actually, I was at the gym. I was playing basketball with my friends, and I was like, I'm going to write a movie. I'm going to write a script and write a movie. And from that point on, I've been writing ever since. The author thing is relatively new. I started my first novel maybe 2 months ago, and I'm really excited about that one. Playing in the YA space. It's going to be about a teenage spy who goes to a school for teenage spies. I feel like that's very on brand now, and it's you could say it's a trend in a sense in the industry, especially with young adult material is centering around some type of educational experience, but different. So I thought, hey, why not make it a spy thriller. I love Mission Impossible, Jason Bourne, those classic James Bond, classic spy thrillers. And I also was a big fan of Cody Banks, Agent Cody Banks. If you don't know Agent Cody Banks, you might be really, really young, or you were probably older than the target audience at that time. But Agent Cody Banks, banger. Everyone with him. The first one had Hilary Duff. Back in the day, Hilary Duff was that girl next to Raven Simone, and next to Raven, she pretty much they was running Disney, so and that was a banger. I was like, man, I want to be Cody Banks. I want to be a secret agent. In my past life, I wanted to be FBI agent, CIA agent, all that. But when I got older and looked at those benefit pages and the work-life balance, it was just not hitting. It was not hitting on nothing. And FBI, they want to pay you like $40-something thousand to live in Northern Virginia. Not gonna work. Not gonna work for me, partner. And I was like, yeah. And then their hiring process is super convoluted and super long. So not to get too much into that, but so hopefully, as this journey as a podcaster grows and expands, that my book can drop and that you guys can read a bit of my work. Also on the screenwriting front, I'm working on something very beholden to me. It's just, I'm just gonna say it's called Titans for now. I'm not gonna release the whole title to you guys right now, but it's called Titans. On Coverfly, it was actually put on the red list like a few times actually. And if you know anything about screenwriting, if you know anything about the Coverfly is like the main platform that screenwriters can put their screenplays on, and they can get feedback, they can enter contests, all that good stuff. So it made the red list. It's gotten good feedback on it. I just finished a rewrite on it like maybe a couple weeks ago, so I'm looking to get that submitted somewhere and get some feedback on that. But that'll be a cool spec script to have when I want to enter into fellowships. I'll probably be doing fellowships next year, just for the simple fact that I didn't really have much ready this year. So I'm thinking about the Nickelodeon fellowship, screenwriting fellowship, and a few other fellowships. I'm also working on a few movies. Like, I'm working on a lot of things right now. I think the thing for me is finishing it. I start lots of things. Like my last podcast, Sons of Wakanda podcast had a similar vibe and feel, but it was me and a few other guys that failed. So I was like, I'm gonna give this another go, and I'm gonna do it solo this time. But anyway, writing is very fun and very freeing for me. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully some of you guys can read it. I know if I'm hosting not Sons of Wakanda, the Titan script. It's on my Blacklist page. So if you're familiar with the Blacklist, you can go on there and find Titan script, give it a read, and if you're so compelled, you can leave me a comment on YouTube, or I think you might be able to leave a comment on the podcast page. I'm not very sure how that works. As you know, I'm a podcast newbie, but yeah. So, but listen, guys, I'm not gonna hold you guys too long. This has been episode number 1 of the Juju Writes Podcast. Of course, as this goes on, we'll be talking about many different movies, TV, Marvel, DC, anything else I want to talk about that pops up. This podcast will be posted on a weekly basis, so look for these episodes every Monday at 10 a.m. That's when I plan to drop them. And yeah. So thank you for listening to this episode. Please follow the podcast, download the podcast. And if you're on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you happen to find me on TikTok or Instagram, come on over to the pod and give me a holler, give me a shout, give me a listen. If it's like 5-10 minutes, I'm appreciative of everything that I can get engaging wise, as I am a new podcast. So listen, this has been the Juju Writes Podcast. Keep it locked. Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it? Juju Writes. Juju Writes. It's the Juju Writes Podcast. Get it, get it.